Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
What's up, guys? Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well, and in this video we are going to be discussing the end of the Mandoverse as we know it. That means the end of all of the Mandoverse shows, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, the Mandalorian seasons, Skeleton Crew. And so really how all of these different shows are going to wrap up into the Dave Filoni Mandoverse movie that he is going to be writing and directing. This was confirmed recently just at Star Wars Celebration last month. And so of course, after some big announcements at Star Wars Celebration, many fans are wondering if The Mandalorian will be coming to an end. But what does executive producer Dave Filoni have to say about that? There were a lot of exciting pieces of news for the Star Wars franchise released by Lucasfilm at their recent fan event. This included the reveal of a new movie telling the story of The First Jedi, a final season of The Bad Batch, and so much more, that we of course have covered here on the channel. One of the biggest among them was the reveal that Dave Filoni would be writing and directing his own movie, acting as a quote-unquote culmination of the various Mandoverse projects. Pretty much like an Avengers movie, except for, well, Star Wars. This quickly led to many to assume that the theatrical event would start the countdown timer for the end of Pedro Pascal's The Mandalorian. However, this all being said, is this really going to be the end of the Mandoverse? Well, in a recent interview with IGN.com at Star Wars Celebration, the Mandalorian executive producer Dave Filoni commented on if his upcoming Mandoverse movie would be considered the finale of the hit Disney Plus shows, all of the Mandoverse shows. And so Dave Filoni noted how he doesn't know if he'd call it that as such, saying that in full quote, "I don't know if I would call it that as such. I think of the time period now, the New Republic time period, and it's something that has existed long before we ever started making The Mandalorian. The idea that after Return of the Jedi that there was a New Republic and the heroes still had to defend that New Republic from the remnant empire is a very old idea, and so one that we brought up into the first season of The Mandalorian, because it's what was always there," ending that quote right there. Really kind of in a way teasing at the idea that there is more to the Mandoverse than just the characters that we already know and love, like Ahsoka, Boba Fett, and Mando. And that if for anything, even then, they're still developing this big culmination story, and it's gonna take some time. And even with the fact that they're really just beginning to start that how much of a threat that the Empire really is. I'd also like to mention that even before the Star Wars Celebration announcement, something that we did talk about and cover here on the channel, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau had an interview where they did discuss the possible potential idea of a culmination movie before it was even ever announced or confirmed, which I do kind of find a little bit funny. However, anyway, Dave Filoni mentions in that interview that it would not be the end of The Mandalorian and that they would love to do more stories even beyond that movie. And even then, I think that it would be kind of, in a way, a conclusion to the other characters like Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, Rangers of the New Republic, and so much more, whatever else they have, like Skeleton Crew for the Mandoverse, and that they would like to continue on just the story of just Din Djarin and Grogu. And we're already kind of seeing that to a point, in a way, with that quote-unquote soft reboot that we did see at the end of the Mandalorian Season 3 finale there, as we see Din Djarin and Grogu step away from the rest of the Mandalorian creeds and cultures out there. As they all remain on Mandalore, he goes back to Navarro and picks up a few gigs with the New Republic, becoming a bounty hunter once again that we first saw him in the first season. We also know that the Mandoverse is supposed to bring us 30 years down the timeline into the sequel trilogy, and they've only covered a solid year or two at that, so there is so much more for them to explore on and really show us with the Mandoverse here, bringing us to the sequel trilogy. And I think that if for anything, this Mandoverse movie by Dave Filoni, it could be the first of many. However, I will say that it is completely understandable why many fans might be jumping to conclusions. The official Star Wars website summits the Filoni movie will focus on the New Republic and close out the interconnected stories told across the various Mandoverse shows. Filoni is also described as orchestrating the escalating war between the Imperial remnants and the fledgling New Republic. This idea of the remnants of the Empire threatening the galaxy is not a new one. In fact, one of its most famous Star Wars legend stories, Heir to the Empire, which did have a name drop in the Ahsoka trailer, and something that I think we will see kind of really become to fruition here overall and make that legend story come to canon a little bit more, looks to be a key influence in the Ahsoka show and the Mandoverse stories overall. This year, all being said, it seems that the Mandalorian is here to stay for a little while. Also with the new idea and fact that Dave Filoni's movie, from what I've last heard, is eyeballing a 2026 release. They have so much time, as I had mentioned, to really build towards the sequel trilogy. There's 30 years that are still there in that gap, and they've barely have made a dent in it at that. Thankfully, it does seem that there is no need for fans to worry about The Mandalorian going anywhere for now, though this could easily be a case of Filoni not wanting to confirm something before it's time to do so, because maybe he hasn't really completely written it out that far with him and Jon Favreau. At the very least, fans will be getting another season of Din Djarin's adventures. With season 4 of The Mandalorian, we have official details on that already into the regards of its production, its filming, and its release dates. It's something that we already discussed and talked about here on the channel in a separate video, but season 4 is set to begin its production in October of this year and will likely drop on Disney Plus next year or even in early 2025, although I am counting on next year, fingers crossed for sure. With Dave Filoni's movie being a culmination event, it's almost certainly at least will feel like a final and finale of sorts in some respects to all of the Mandoverse shows. Perhaps the movie will bring to a head the thread of the remnant empire and start more directly leading into the formation of the sequel trilogy's First Order, with the rise of the First Order that we would see later down the road. It is also worth noting that the Mandoverse movies does not yet have a release date that has been officially confirmed, but pre-rumor, of course, as I had mentioned, is looking for a 2026 release, something I'd like to discuss in a separate feature video here on the channel in more depth and more details here. And by the time it finally does come out in theaters, there could be another half-dozen seasons of the various Star Wars shows on Disney Plus. Needless to say, the world will get plenty more stories focused on Grogu and Din Djarin as well. Overall here, our final takeaway here, the end of the story here essentially is the Mandalorian coming to an end? Not right now. The Mandoverse movie is not going to be the end. Probably not. Just basing off of what we've heard from Dave Filoni is that he doesn't want it to be the end. He hasn't said anything official saying that this is it, like this is going to be the end of the Mandoverse, and from there they want to move on to other stories like the Old Republic, New Republic, Dawn of the Jedi type of stuff, all that stuff that would be taking place way before the Skywalker saga and everything like that. But no, we still have so much more time with these characters, with the Mandalorian, with Grogu, and that the overall Mandoverse movie, that's not going to be the end of the Mandalorian at that, even if it does act as a culmination event, bringing many of the stories to a close, as I had mentioned, like Ahsoka, Boba Fett, Bo-Katan, Kryze. It could bring their stories to a close, but would still have Din Djarin and Grogu out and about in their adventures, just doing their thing, taking place even beyond and after those events. Also with the idea and the fact that the sequel trilogy is still 30 years out in the Mandoverse, and something that's been confirmed by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni is that they have said that they want to bring the Mandoverse to the sequel trilogy, so we have so much more time. Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you guys all think about this. And so until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching today's video. May the Force be with you as always. This has been Unofficial Star Wars. Peace out.